Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. All right, we have with us today James Hunt, who is the nephew of Frank Sturgess. We've had him on the show several times before. He's a law professor down there in Texas. Mr. Hunt, are you there?
I'm here. Yes, Ed, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hey, remind the audience, who is James Hunt?
Well, as you said, I'm practicing attorney in Claremont County, Ohio, which is near Cincinnati. I do teach at the University of Cincinnati College of Law and Psychiatry, and I'm the co-author of the biography of my uncle Frank Sturgess, who, among other things, was one of the Watergate burglars.
Yeah, what's that book called again?
The book is called Warrior. It's got a long subtitle, but the main title is Warrior, and it's still available, actually. We published it. It came out about 6 years ago, I think, Ed.
Okay.
Something like that. So, anyway, we... forget what I was going to say. Anyway, that's who I am. I'm the author of that book, and always happy to talk about my Uncle Frank.
Yeah, nephew of Frank Sturgess. You grew up actually helping out and working with Frank. You even made some Molotov cocktails or something like that, or some napalm or something for Frank.
Well, when I was in high school, Frank lived in Florida, in Miami. We used to go there in the summer and visit with him, and he was at that time big on fighting against Fidel Castro, and one of his projects involved making napalm bombs to drop on the sugar fields down there to screw up the Cuban economy, and I just happened to be involved in making those bombs one night. But anyway.
Now, how would that work? You'd see him in the morning, and he'd say, okay, I'm going off to work, and then he'd fly over Cuba, drop these bombs out the window, and then they'd fly back?
Yeah, he had a B-52, or a B-25, rather, airplane that he had actually taken from Fidel when he Frank left Cuba in June of 1959 with the B-25, and he had another guy flying a C-46, and he used those airplanes from that point on to fight against Fidel Castro. So yeah, he would use that airplane either to drop these bombs or leaflets. A lot of anti-Castro leaflets he would drop on Havana from time to time.
So fascinating. So he's gotten this stolen airplane, basically, but somehow he flies it back to Florida, and he's able to register that illegally in Florida. No questions where it came from?
Well, all I know is it was parked at the Oberlock Airport because I used to see it. We lived not too far from there, actually, when I lived with him when I was in college back in the 60s. So.
Just fascinating. What went on with this guy? You know, the guy just did whatever he wanted. You know.
Well, Frank was, he started out life. He was born in Virginia, but he actually grew up in Philadelphia, raised by his mother, and he lived with his aunt and uncle and his grandparents. And at age 17, he joined the Marine Corps, became a Raider Marine, which are kind of like the Navy SEALs back in World War II days. Fought in World War II. He was decorated. He got out. He came back to the Virginia Beach area and joined the Navy for a while, and where he learned to fly airplanes. Then he was actually in the Army. In 1948, he was in Berlin when the Russians put up the famous Berlin blockade, where they blockaded all the supplies coming into the city of Berlin. He was there then. From there, he ended up being a spy for Haganah, which was the Israeli underground. Came back to the United States, and for a while he operated a bar in Virginia Beach, but then got kind of bored with that. 1957, 58, he was introduced to Fidel Castro down in Miami through a friend of actually a friend of his uncle's. His uncle was married to a Cuban woman, and Frank threw in with Fidel, started running guns in for him, and then became a captain in this rebel army, personal friend of Fidel's. After the revolution was successful, Fidel made him and put him in charge of all the gambling in Cuba, and he also was the chief of intelligence for the Air Force. But he was a big anti-communist. He didn't like the communists at all. And as the revolution went more and more in that direction, Frank then began to cooperate with the CIA and the U.S. government to try to see what was going on with Fidel. And basically, as I stated earlier, left the island in June of 1959 with those two airplanes, and spent the rest of his life fighting against Fidel Castro.
For the CIA?
I'm sorry, what?
He was fighting against Castro for the CIA?
A lot of the time he was. Frank was never on their payroll directly. He was an independent contractor for the CIA. He did a lot of contract work for them. At one point, though, actually, the CIA became less involved in Cuba. There was kind of a hands-off policy that the United States had, and at that time he did a lot of missions for what I would call private, conservative, anti-communist money in Central and South America. But those were the two sources of his occupation in terms of fighting against Fidel, both the CIA and the private work that he did.
And what about during the period of time during the Kennedy assassination? Who was he working for then?
Well, that was after the CIA. That was after the Bay of Pigs, and it was really the Bay of Pigs fiasco that kind of led to this policy of the United States to keep their hands off of Cuba. So at that point in the 60s, that's when he was doing most of the work, I would say, for the private interests in Central and South America. By about the time of Watergate, which was 1972, 73, Frank had actually talked to me one time about kind of giving up on the Fidel Castro business, and he had a job working for a company that installed windows, I think, in all the condominiums in Florida, and was going to, I think, kind of focus on that. But then along came this opportunity for him to participate with a guy named Macho Barker, Bernard Barker, who was, of course, one of the people involved in Watergate. And Barker recruited Frank to become a plumber for the Nixon White House to basically, it was a reaction against a lot of the anti-war stuff that was going on at the time with Vietnam and so on. So.
Right, and the reason why we touched base again just now is I had posted an article about McCord, James McCord, right. His death at 99 years old, whatever it was, something like that. And right. And you had some things to say about that. What can you tell us about James McCord?
Well, looking at the whole operation of what became known as Watergate, as I say, Frank was recruited by Barker. Barker had been recruited by a guy named E. Howard Hunt. Now, he's not related to me, but Hunt and Barker and Frank were all involved in the Bay of Pigs.
Right.
And they were all active anti-Castro people. They also recruited Rolando Martinez, who was an anti-Castro. Actually, Martinez at the time of Watergate was still on the CIA payroll. He did a lot of secret missions into Cuba for the CIA, by boat, sometimes by airplane. And then the other person they recruited was Virgilio Gonzalez, who was a locksmith and also an anti-Castro Cuban. So that was the group. And the first job that they did was and involved the funeral of Herbert Hoover. I'm sorry, of J. Edgar Hoover. There was a demonstration against Hoover by a group led by the Barragan brothers. I don't know if you remember the Barragans.
Oh, sure.
They were two radical priests that were opposed to the war. And so they were going to lead a demonstration into the Capitol during the time that Hoover was laying in state. And Frank and Barker and another group of Cubans basically stood in their way and confronted them and chased them away. So that was really the first Watergate or plumber thing that my uncle did, that Frank did. They went back in May of 1972 to Washington, D.C., and for the first time they met James McCord. McCord had been brought into the group by Hunt. McCord was a 19-year veteran of the CIA. Hunt hired. The CIA has a whole office where they help ex-spies get placed in employment and so forth. And I think that's how Hunt came up with McCord. McCord supposedly was an expert in electronic surveillance. He also was running a private security company that was being paid by the White House at the time. So McCord was brought into this group that included, like I said, my uncle and Barker, Martinez, and Gonzalez. And he was an outsider. I mean, he was not part of their group. He had never been involved in the anti-Castro things that were going on. And really from the start, they had kind of a distrust of him. Martinez told me when we interviewed him for the book that he was surprised that one of the things that McCord was supposed to do was he was supposed to be an expert in this electronic surveillance. And he went out and they bought a bunch of equipment that Martinez said was all junk. Wasn't very good at all. The night that they got busted at Watergate, they really got down to McCord being the cause. They were staked out across the Watergate in the Howard Johnson's hotel across the street. And earlier that day, on the insistence of McCord and Hunt, they went over and they put tape on the doors that led from the Watergate office building to the garage. They taped over the hasp, the lock, and they were going to, go back that night then and get entrance into the Democratic headquarters, with the tape being on the door. Well, so Frank and Gonzalez were the first to go into the Watergate that evening, and when they got there, the tape on the door was missing. The tape was gone, and Frank had a walkie-talkie radioed back to the rest of the group at the Howard Johnson's and suggested they call the mission off because something was going on. Somebody had found this piece of tape that they put on the door. And apparently there was a discussion back at the Howard Johnson's between Hunt and McCord, and they decided they were going to go ahead with the mission. So McCord and Barker then came across the street, and they all went into the Democratic headquarters. They were there for about 15 minutes. And Martinez told me that McCord told him that he had forgotten some equipment. He had to go back across the street. And so Martinez said, okay, well, take this tape. When you leave, take the door open so that you can, come back in. But make sure you should take the tape off when you come back. So about a half an hour later, McCord showed up again. And Martinez specifically asked him, did you take the tape off? And McCord said, yeah, I took the tape off. Well, he did, man. He lied. He left the tape on the door. So, and what happened was the guard from the Watergate, who was the one who originally had found a piece of tape and had removed it, was making his rounds, and he sees a piece of tape on the door again. Well, that prompted him to call the police, and that's how they got busted.
So now, do you think McCord purposely sabotaged the operation?
Yeah, you have to really look at the larger issue of Nixon and the CIA. There's no question in my mind that the CIA was well aware of the activities of Hunt and the Watergate people, that they knew what was going on. They knew what was going on because they put McCord in as what I would call a mole or a double agent to report back to them. There was a struggle at that time going on between Nixon and the CIA. Nixon was trying to get his hands on certain files from the CIA that he could use against his political enemies. One of those files was called the Bay of Pigs file. Well, it talked about the Bay of Pigs, but it also was a CIA file on the assassination of Kennedy. And the CIA didn't want to give it up to Nixon. And so there was this ongoing struggle between the two of them. And I believe that they, Richard Helms and the CIA people, put McCord into the group basically as a spy to see what was going on and what they were doing and what their activities were. And that's how they got busted. And they basically, McCord set them up to get busted to embarrass Nixon with the CIA.
But McCord got busted himself.
He did. Yeah, well, he was a good CIA agent. And I think expected the CIA to do something to get him out of that, either through a pardon or some other way, and it didn't happen. But he was a loyal CIA guy, and he did get busted. You're right, but he was, I think he saw himself as being kind of sacrificed, because of the work that he was doing for the CIA.
Okay, so then he gets 25 years. He's sitting there in the prison. I guess he was starting a sentence, and he writes a letter to the judge, and he becomes the big witness against the other burglars and against Nixon.
I think that's exactly what happened. He felt like the CIA had abandoned him, that they weren't going to help him. When they first got busted, he told Frank and the rest of them, just keep quiet, everything will be fine, we'll be taken care of. Well, that never really happened. And And I think it was to his chagrin, too, to some extent, that the CIA didn't do something to get him either apart or get him out of the problem that he was in.
And now, after he left prison, did he suffer any repercussions after that, or was he given a deal after he left prison? Was he given work and stuff? What happened to him after prison?
That's a good question. I don't know the exact answer to that, but I don't think he got anything out of it, to be honest. The whole time that trial was going on, he, his wife, and a guy named what's his name? It was a CIA guy named Pennington. Burned a bunch of papers that McCord had accumulated from the CIA. Burned a bunch of them up in his grill in the backyard while the trial was going. So, I mean, I think there's plenty of evidence that McCord was working for the CIA. When they got busted in June of '72, the CIA people they had a meeting. They call it the Monday meeting. Every Monday morning there would be a meeting with the director, and the notes from that meeting show that they knew at that time, and the arrest had just occurred. They knew already that Hunt was involved in the break-in, even though he had never been. He was not arrested. He wasn't one of the people arrested. He wasn't in the newspaper or anything like that. I mean, they knew what was going on. No question about it. And again, it gets back to this struggle between Nixon and the CIA over these files. And the CIA people didn't want to give up the files. They wanted to embarrass Nixon, and that's what they did.
I found it interesting, too, just brushing up before we had this phone call today. This popped up here that in '61, McCord he launched the investigation into the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. Did you know about that?
Yeah, you're telling me something I didn't know. I had no idea.
Yeah. Now, what the hell, man? The Fair
right?
Play for Cuba Committee was like, what, 3 guys?
Well, it was Oswald and a couple of other people.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I had no idea. Did not know that. Yeah.
That is. The more you know, man. The more you hear about this stuff, the wackier it gets with all this stuff, You're
right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But as I say, but when we interviewed both Parker and Martinez, they both told us that they didn't trust McCord. They thought that he'd been basically placed in another group by the CIA, so the CIA could keep an eye on him, and that he's the reason. The tape. We talk about the tape. Do you think they could be used as cellophane tape, for instance? No, they used duct tape. And you think they could have applied the tape vertically on the doors? No, they did it horizontally so that when the door was shut, you could see the tape sticking in. All right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that was just stupidity, but to me it seems like because McCord and Hunt were the ones that actually had applied the tape to the doors earlier that day.
Yeah, but even then, you think your average security guard working in an office building, an empty office building, even if the DNC is in there, is checking every door for tape? My God, they're half asleep, these guys wandering around. They're not doing anything.
Well, according to the guard, that's the reason he busted.
Yeah,
because the tape, he found the tape, took it off, and boom, it came back.
I'm sure he saw the tape. And you mentioned too that the surveillance equipment they had was really cheap, knockoff stuff. Why wouldn't they have access to good equipment?
That's what Martinez said. He said, he couldn't understand, what McCord's role was actually supposed to be because, again, the equipment was bad. I mean, the equipment they used, they were able to bug for a period of time for about a couple of weeks. They were able to bug the phones at the DNC, but they couldn't record them. They couldn't. All they could do was intercept them, and then McCord and some other guy would sit down and make a log of when the phone call occurred, what they said.
Really?
Yeah. It was really kind of antiquated stuff. And the other thing that Martinez couldn't understand is why they needed to put tape on the doors in the first place when Gonzalez was a locksmith,
right,
and picked the locks for him. It just didn't make any sense that they, went to that trouble or whatever to put the tape on there when they didn't need to do it.
It could have went a week before and had keys made.
That's what
He could have won a week
now?
before and had keys made.
Well, that's true. Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
or burgle the
Anyway.
security guard's house first and get his keys. And what about too? Now these wiretaps too. They didn't have like infinity transmitters that they could put on a phone and bug them. They had a lot of good, sophisticated equipment back in the 70s. Why did they even have to do this? Even break in to begin with?
Why? Because Nixon was looking for. They were told. My uncle and the Cubans were told that they were looking for evidence that Fidel Castro was funneling money to the DNC.
Right.
And it was coming through either fixed highlight games down in Miami or money coming for the Black Panthers from the sale of drugs. Well, I think that's not the only reason that they were breaking in, frankly, was to find dirt on the Democrats at the behest of Nixon and his administration. I mean, that's the reason for the break-in. And, they were lied to about the connection with Castro. But that's the reason that Nixon did it. Nixon was a paranoid guy. He said, what did he say? Everybody knows everybody spies and everybody else will always do it. He talked about, being spied on from even when he was ran for governor of California. So it was kind of an MO for Nixon to do this type of thing.
Back to McCord for a second. After he was released from prison, did he do any interviews or write any books or anything?
Pretty silent, I think.
Yeah.
I think he was pretty silent about the whole thing. We didn't run across any of that when we were doing research for our book, I can tell you that. After they were actually pled guilty and convicted, they hired a lawyer by the name of Dan Schultz, who I think is still practicing in Washington, D.C. And Schultz would meet with them, but never with McCord. And he also told us, he said, there's no question that they all didn't trust McCord and thought that he had been basically placed into the group to spy on him for the people at the CIA.
And how about Doug Caddy? I've had Doug Caddy on the show quite a few times. What do you make of what was his take on McCord? Do you know?
Well, it's funny. I just became a friend of his on Facebook, and I said, "Are you the same Doug Caddy that represented my uncle at the Water?" He said, "Yeah, I am." Caddy, and he's never denied it to me. He and Barker and Hunt knew each other because they worked for the CIA. Caddy worked. There was a company, I forget the name of it, that they all were affiliated with. It was actually a CIA fund.
Yeah, the publishing
And
company.
So Caddy came into the picture because of his connection to Barker and to Hunt through the CIA. That's how he came on board.
Okay, he still denies to me he was ever CIA.
He who what?
He denies to me he was ever CIA.
Well, come on, Ed.
I'm not saying I believe him.
My uncle ever worked for him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
Talking about people, they all. That's one of the things about spies. They lie.
Yeah.
They call it. It's part of their tradition. I mean, they don't always tell the truth. I'm sure he was connected with the CIA. There's no question in my mind about it.
Yeah, he has a fascinating background too. He was friends with Guy Bannister and all those guys. He has also connections back to that Fair Play for Cuba area,
Right.
And all that shenanigans.
Right. Yeah.
Can all this be a coincidence?
Sure. Give me a break.
Okay, let's take a little commercial break. Oh, by the way, too, speaking of coincidences, too, I just had another guy on the show real quick before we get to this commercial. What's his name here? Richard Bartholomew, who wrote this book, The Deep State in the Heart of Texas. And offhand, he just dropped a bomb. He says that Al Haig, before he went to work in the Nixon White House, one of his positions was to vet out all the Cubans before they could join the CIA or join the military. He was vetting, so he knew all those Cubans too, those Cuban burglars.
Wow, is that right? That's interesting. Yeah, it is. Okay.
Another thing, right, that nobody's now. There's still a lot to uncover.
I know, it's still going on.
Yeah. All right, let's take a commercial break here with the great James Hunt, man. This guy always has good info, man. He lived a life. I wrote the book Warrior about the Frank Sturgess, nephew of Frank Sturgess. He's got the recipe for napalm. We'll be right back with. By the way, Jim Hunt was the alibi for Frank Sturgess. Jim, are you still the alibi, Jim, or are we ready to move on?
I can only tell the truth on that one. I was with Frank when Kennedy was shot. Frank did not shoot Kennedy.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'd never question you, Jim. We'll be right back with more of Jim Hunt, nephew of Frank Sturgess, and the alibi for Frank Sturgess right after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with James Hunt, who is the nephew of Frank Sturgess, author of the book Warrior. Like you said, a very long subtitle on that. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. But we'll have a link in the description. Now, a couple more quick questions. Now, by the way, to clarify the situation with you being the alibi for Frank Sturgess on the day of the JFK assassination, my understanding is you saw him that morning and you saw him later on that night, but at the exact moment the shots were being fired, you weren't with him at that time, right?
No, I wasn't, Ed. What happened was I was living with Frank and my Aunt Janet at the time. I was in college at Miami-Dade Junior College. And I went to college that morning, and I came back around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. And my next class was, I think, at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So I was at home, and I was at home when the report came over the television about the assassination. Now, I saw Frank that morning about 8 o'clock before I went to school. There's no, I remember very specifically seeing him there. I do not recall that he was there when I came back at around 11. I don't recall that he was there when, the news came on the Kennedy assassination. Although my aunt does recall, she thought Frank was there most of the day. I did see him probably later that afternoon around 3 or 4 o'clock. So there was a period of time in between 8 and 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon when I didn't see him. A.J. Weberman, Crazy Weberman, the yippie, thinks that Frank, somehow got to Dallas and was involved as one of the bums on the grassy knoll that then one of the shooters of Kennedy. I just don't think he had time to do it. There was an airport near our house, the O'Block Airport. I guess we did some calculations when we did the book. It was just, even if he had been on a jet, I don't think he could have flown to Dallas and done the job and then come back and, been home by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, I don't think Frank was there to fire the shots. On the other hand, there's no question in my mind that he was part of the conspiracy to assassinate Kennedy. Based on the research we did for the book, it looked to us like it was primarily motivated by the mafia, but they worked in conjunction with people like my Uncle Frank and he hired Hunt Barker, who had been CIA people and whose careers kind of went down the tubes because of the bad pigs. My uncle was very bitter towards Kennedy about the bad pigs. So there were those two groups, and then the third group was the mafia. Well, Frank was kind of pivotal. He knew all those groups. He got to know most of the mafioso people when he was the gambling czar in Cuba. He introduced me one time to Sandro Trafficante, who was the head of the Tampa mob, and Sammy Manorini, who was the head of the Pittsburgh mob. So he knew all these people. And we think that it was probably the mafia that was kind of the impetus, but again, working in conjunction with people like my uncle and the anti-Castro Cubans in Miami. And it was, as I say, conspiracy. It wasn't a lone gunman. Oswald didn't do this on his own. There's no question about that. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of people involved in it. Kennedy was actually in Miami that Monday before he was shot in Dallas on Friday. And I can't prove it, but one of my theories is there may have been actually a plot to do the assassination when he was in Miami, because he was supposed to ride in a motorcade from the airport over to Miami Beach across one of the causeways. And at the last minute, that was canceled, and they flew him over in a helicopter. I think it's in part because somebody picked up on the fact that there may have been an attempt on his life then. So.
Now, when you were asked to provide an alibi for your uncle, where did he say he was that day?
He says he was home. Although apparently he's given a couple of different answers on that. Okay. I think at one point he said he didn't remember, but then I think his basic story was that he was at home, and he this is when he was testifying with the Rockefeller Commission. He gave them my name as as one of the alibi people for him, right. And he told them that he had been home that day. I ended up filing an affidavit with him, telling him what I just told you, that I saw him that morning, I saw him that afternoon. I don't think he went to Dallas, but anyway.
Well, then when you saw him that afternoon after the assassination, did you guys talk about it? Oh my goodness, Mr. Kennedy died today.
Oh sure, and I'll tell you something. it kind of surprised me. As I said before, Frank was very, very critical of JFK. Didn't like him at all because of the bad pigs. Now, my aunt, on the other hand, was a big JFK supporter. And I have to say, after the assassination, he was very comforting to my aunt that day. He really was. He didn't mouth off about JFK. He was very solicitous and, nice to her, and tried to comfort her because she was very upset. A lot of people were. So, anyway.
Okay, just to jump back to Doug Caddy for a second. I've had Doug Caddy on the show several times. As a matter of fact, I was the first guy to find him and bring him on. He had done no shows before mine. What about his theory is that the motive for the JFK assassination, are you aware of this? That he thinks it's to conceal the alien presence on this earth? He believes that it was to cover up alien presence on the earth.
I think I saw a thing on Facebook that he posted about that. Yeah, this goes back to, was this the alien that supposedly met with Eisenhower?
No, but
okay.
Caddy's a serious guy. He's been involved in a lot of stuff. Koreagate with the JFK folks. He's been a CIA Watergate attorney. He's a serious guy, man. But he is convinced. I've talked to him about this, man. He is convinced, and he's convinced that there's an alien influence in his life that has put him in all these places to be involved in all these different things. But you'd never heard that before about aliens or anything?
No, I mean, no. He and I, we communicate on Facebook a little bit, but we haven't had any really, discussions about anything. So that's interesting. Jeez. I didn't know.
Yeah, and I tell you, he's convinced.
I don't think Frank was involved with any aliens. I can tell you.
Yeah, I know. I asked the St. John Hunt too, if you heard of that too. So what do you make of the Jim Rothstein, where he says that your uncle confessed to him?
You mean the Howard Hunt's the confession?
No. I'm sorry. No. James Rothstein, the New York City detective who claims that.
Yeah, I don't know. He's one of the people I don't necessarily believe on all this. I mean, I read what he had to say. I don't know. On the other hand, there's a guy named Fernando Simões who was Portuguese, and he claims that my uncle and Oliver North gave him and some other guys some money to assassinate the Prime Minister of Portugal back in 1980. And he tells me that Frank, during the discussions and the time that he had with him, told him that he had been involved in the assassination of Kennedy. So I don't know. I mean, all I can tell you is during his life, Frank never publicly admitted it. He claims he took actually a lie detector test, which he says he passed. And I don't know what questions they asked him. I wasn't there for it, but. As I said before, I don't think he pulled the trigger, but he certainly was involved.
Gotcha.
No question. Yeah.
Now, recently I had Scott Kaiser on the show, who his father was Edwin Kaiser, who Scott claims that his father was a seventh or unnamed Watergate burglar and also involved in the JFK assassination. And he also says that he thinks that Frank Sturgess killed his father. What do you think?
Ed, Kaiser called me up. He got to me through Weberman. Weberman's the one, I think, told him how to get a hold of me. And we started off the conversation. He said that his father knew my uncle, and I said, well, that's nice. How do you know my uncle? And Kaiser said, well, your uncle murdered my father. I said, oh, well, jeez. The first I've heard of that. I don't know. Maybe Frank knew him. I asked my aunt about Kaiser, and she didn't remember him. The son, I always get Ed. Ed is the son, right? Or is that the...
No, Edwin is the father, and the son is Scott.
Scott. He told me that his father was good friends with Frank. He used to drink brandy with him. Well, Frank didn't drink. He didn't drink brandy for sure, and he didn't drink anything, actually. He was a teetotal. So there were some things about Kaiser from the beginning that I kind of doubted. But he got very nasty with me on Facebook about being involved with my uncle and my uncle killing his father and so forth. And then at one point he kind of repented and said that he didn't really think my uncle was involved. But apparently he's come back around to thinking that he was. I don't know. Is that what he told you on the show?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I had spoken to you that day. You and me chatted a bit on Facebook right before the interview. And I said, he says your uncle killed him. What do you think? And he says, oh, no. AJ kind of got him wired up about that, which I believe. And then he says, but no, we all worked it out, and we don't think he did. But then when I mentioned that to him on the show, he freaked out, and then he went on for like a week's tirade of posting proof, I guess it was. But I don't know. So that's where we are with that.
Well, I don't want to fight with Scott Kaiser. I mean, I'm sorry his father was murdered or died, but I just don't think. As far as being one of the Watergate burglars, no way. I mean, that one I'll say no way on. My co-author and I looked at Watergate every which way you could, and Kaiser never came up in any respect whatsoever. So I don't know. I don't know why he would say that. That's maybe he's trying to, pick up on the whatever the notoriety that Frank has from it. But I mean, no, he was not involved in Watergate. Not in any way that I can know of. No.
Okay.
I think he said his father had some information that he was going to blackmail Frank, and that's the reason Frank killed him. And it was about killing County. I don't know. I just, there's some people who think Frank was involved in the John Lennon assassination.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, that's on the internet somewhere. The reason for that is there was the bellman at the hotel, the Dakota.
Yeah, Padermo.
Was a guy named Sam Janis. And in Cuba, Sam Janis was Sam Hanus. Sam Hanus was Frank's CIA handler during much of the work that he did for the CIA. And somehow somebody thought that meant that Frank was involved in assassinating poor John Lennon. So, there are a lot of stories out there. But
wait a second. There was a second CIA guy at the Dakota? Because Jose Padermo is the one everybody talks about.
Who?
Jose Padermo.
Oh, really? No, I think Hennis was there. I think that's true. I think he was working there.
Yeah, Hennis. Sam Hennis.
Yeah, Janis or Hennis, yeah, right, yeah.
And what was his employment down at the Dakota?
I'm sorry, what?
What did he do for a living at the Dakota?
I didn't hear you. You broke up on me.
I'm sorry, this Sam Hennis or Janis, what was his connection to the Dakota apartments?
He was supposedly the night bellman.
Another bellman.
Yeah, the night bellman when he got shot. That's the thing I read.
Okay, we're going to have to take a look into that. Okay. Now, speaking of A.J. Weberman, okay, the wonderful A.J. Weberman, the garbologist, the Dylanologist, the coup d'etat in America, Yippee, defense, Jewish Defense Organization, varied career. Now, have you been in touch with him? Because he's banned for life from Facebook. He has he can't even access Facebook anymore.
Well, he says he puts so much controversial stuff on there. AJ and I haven't had any contact for a little while. I can tell you. A couple of years ago, especially with this Portuguese thing, we were kind of working together to try to see to get to the bottom of it. But I haven't, I've not heard anything directly from him for a while. I always wonder what I kind of worry when I don't hear from him what he's doing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, what happened was he wrote some book about accusing some woman of being Hamas or something. I don't know what it was. Some lawyer or some local councilwoman in New York, and he got all of his books removed from Amazon.
Well, now, he told me that story as it relates to Rudy Giuliani. He says that he wrote a biography of Giuliani called Homo Thug.
Right.
And Giuliani, his people made him take the book off of Amazon.
One book. This other woman got all his books removed.
All of them.
All of them.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is a guy who This is a guy, a well-known guy, by the way. This is a guy who hung out with John Lennon. Okay, speaking of Lennon again, and this guy's
Dylan to some extent.
Yeah. And has had all his books removed, and has been totally banned from Facebook. Like, can't even create a fake account to get back on Facebook.
Wow.
Makes you wonder.
No wonder I don't see him anymore. Now I have to say, AJ is a pretty brilliant guy. And a very great researcher. I mean, the guy is, files out, files upon files of, stuff that relates to my uncle and everything else. But I don't know. He's still a little crazy.
Yeah. Oh no, everyone would agree with that. But now also too, what you guys were working on in Portugal? You did uncover an assassination plot against the president of Portugal, right?
Well, they call it Camarade. Camarade is an area right outside of the Lisbon airport where in 1980, a small plane carrying the prime minister, the defense minister, the secretary of the cabinet, a couple of their wives, and then 2 pilots crashed. And some years later, this guy, Fernando Simoes, who was in prison on charges unrelated to that, issued a confession, a written confession, because the statute of limitations on murder had run in Cuba and in Portugal. So he issued a confession in which he claimed that my uncle and Oliver North gave him and gave this other guy, I'm drawing a blank on his name anyway, like $750,000 to place a bomb on this airplane and blow up the prime minister and the defense minister. And it all related to, it was actually the first Iran-Contra act. We were shipping arms to Iran at the time because they were at war with Iraq, and we were secretly shipping them through Lisbon to Israel and then on to Iran. And the story is that the prime minister of Portugal wanted to put a stop to it. And so, somebody supposedly hired my uncle and Oliver North and some other people to basically do a number on him and get rid of him. So that matter has been investigated by the Portuguese Parliament since about 1982, and they've still not reached a conclusion. There's some people who think it was just an accident. I have to say, I went over and I interviewed Simoes when he was in prison, and after talking to him, there was no question in my mind that he knew my uncle. My uncle was in Portugal because of the civil war in Angola at the time. Angola had been a colony of Portugal, and the communist government had taken over the government of Angola. Fidel Castro had sent a bunch of Cuban troops there, and so in the late 1980s or 1970s, right after Watergate, Frank did go over to Portugal and to Angola to try to give support to the anti-communist rebels who were fighting against the communist government. So there's no question that Frank was there. We have a diary that he kept when he was in Portugal and some other. He was actually out in the bush in Angola teaching guerrilla warfare to the anti-Castro soldiers. So we know he was there, and we know that he knows Simoes. Now, whether he did what Simoes says, I don't know. As I said, there's no question in my mind that Simoes knew my uncle, and they probably worked together, against the communist government in Angola. But I don't know. It's an ongoing thing. I mean, we're still looking at it, actually.
Any confirmed connection between Ollie North and your uncle?
Well, supposedly North and my uncle met with Fernando Simoes and Josie Esteves to give him this money. So yeah. Now, I never had any discussions with my uncle about any of this when he was alive. It actually all came out after my book was published when I was contacted by Frederico Carvalho, who was a journalist over in Portugal who had been, researching this. It was the first that I actually heard of it. So I don't know. I mean, did they do this? AJ and I actually teamed up and tried to get information from the CIA under a Freedom of Information Act request, and they came back and said, well, we can neither confirm nor deny that there's any information, but even if there was, we wouldn't tell you because it might upset relationships between countries. And I kept thinking, what the hell does something that happened in 1980 in Portugal have to do with relationships with countries today? And the only thing I can think of is that the CIA probably did know about this thing. Whether they were behind it, I don't know. But I'm sure they knew about it.
Well, when your uncle died, did he leave a big estate? Did he have a lot of money?
Who?
Your uncle, Sturgess.
He didn't, Fred. Yeah. Unfortunately, he did not have a 401k or anything like that.
Okay.
After he passed away, it was kind of tough times for my aunt. It really was. She lost the house and everything else.
Oh, really? Thank you so much, man. Okay.
Ed, thanks for having me on. It was always a pleasure dealing with you, and I enjoy your show and what you do.
It really is, man. It's a pleasure having you on, too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Ed. Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay, so there we had James Hunt, nephew of Frank Sturgess, law professor, all involved in all kinds of stuff down there with A.J. Weber and testifying against with the Portugal Parliament down there. What do they call it? Parliament, I guess they call it down there. I forget what they call it. But anyway, all kinds of fun stuff going on with James Hunt, man. OppermanReport.com. Thank you so much. And now a word from our sponsors. EmailRevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey, Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online, email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com. Digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages, create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com, 800-572-9762. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.